I've been seeing a lot of people talk about the Marvel formula and how they always do the same things, and honestly, I relate, but my biggest problem with the MCU formula isn't what they always do, but instead what they almost never do. Recently, James Gunn, the new CEO of DC Studios, had an interview where he talked about his new DC universe and how it is going to be different from the MCU, saying, "There was never really a guy with a secret identity up until Spider-Man in the MCU. Their Cap was turned into a soldier even though he wears a mask. Iron Man outed himself at the end of the first Iron Man because they don't want to deal with the whole secret identity stuff." And I think this quote makes a lot of sense to me. When I thought more about this statement, I realized that this is kind of my problem with the Marvel Universe. The stories in the MCU don't feel like there's any significant depth to it because we don't have secret identities to deal with. It makes every character feel more 2D than they usually are. I'm going to explain that more at the end, but first let's ask the question. What is a secret identity? Well, to put it plainly, a secret identity is a character's second self that is generally hidden from the public. More importantly, what is the relationship with superheroes and secret identities that makes stories interesting? For this, I want to explore 3 superheroes and their unique relationship with their alter egos, and how I think this pretty accurately showcases the 3 different jobs a secret identity has. The first job of a secret identity is more or less to separate the personal and heroic lives of the hero through representing different character traits of that hero, or different priorities that they may have. The secret identity represents a burden of the hero that they have to maintain for the survival of themselves and for the people they love. Peter Parker can't live life as Spider-Man. He has to pay rent and work and take care of himself and his family. While the hero side is a responsibility that the hero needs to uphold for the survival of the general population. Now, this can switch back and forth. Sometimes the secret identity is the responsibility of the hero. Maybe their character is primarily focused on their family and doing things for themselves, but they have this deep-rooted need to help others. It gets in the way and they hate it, but they have to do it. This general rule applies to most heroes, but I think one part of the separation is how both sides can be tools to benefit the other, like Batman. This is a pretty controversial statement because there's a lot more nuance to this character, but generally one rule that I use when thinking about whether or not Batman works is how he uses both identities as tools. Batman can't schmooze and gossip with the rich and powerful. They know he's onto them and probably trying to arrest them. But Bruce Wayne can. This is generally where people leave it, but something I believe is equally important is how Bruce uses Batman to do things Bruce can't. I mean, the entire existence of Batman is because Bruce can't go walk into a drug empire and take it down. He can't just go to the streets and stop the physical crime. Batman takes the individual criminals down while Bruce changes the system. It's not that Bruce Wayne is the mask. It's that Batman and Bruce Wayne are both tools used to save Gotham. The next job of a secret identity is to help characterize a superhero and their priorities. It provides a baseline thing. The superhero prioritizes keeping their identity a secret. We know that. Otherwise, everybody will know Batman is Bruce Wayne. We can then base their actions on how much they try to maintain their secret identity throughout it, on a scale as more important or less important. It's a fun exercise to determine a hero's values, or a great way of checking your personal thoughts and beliefs of their values and priorities. We all know that Spider-Man isn't very financially intelligent. He's very financially dependent. He's bad with money but really needs it. And we also know he'll protect every single life that he can. We can deduce that he thinks almost exclusively about short-term consequences, and that helps us create this web of characteristics that we know are certain, based on information given to us in media. We know that Spider-Man doesn't prioritize his identity over saving people, because in moments when he has no way of saving people without revealing his identity, he'll just do it. He doesn't wait to go put on a costume while somebody's falling off a building. He'll just jump in and save them really quick, and if he can get out there after, he will. If he doesn't see an optimal, safe way of getting somebody to safety without having to reveal his identity, he'll rip off his mask. Half of New York knows who he is because of the amount of times he just forgets to care because he's so focused on helping, which is a really good quality. The best scene in one of the best Spider-Man movies, where in a moment he can barely breathe and he thinks the best way I could stop this speeding train is just to rip off my mask, get more oxygen, and try to save the day. or probably the only good post-Spider-Man suit-up scene in The Amazing Spider-Man, is when he can't think of a better way to get this kid out of a burning car before it falls off a bridge and explodes. He tears off his mask and gives it to this kid to make him feel brave. We know that he prioritizes even the small amounts of life before keeping his identity safe. We know that he cares more about his identity than he does money, otherwise he would easily just tell his landlords and bosses that he's Spider-Man. How it would probably make his life easier if he did, and he knows that. The amount of times you'll be reading a comic or watching a show and Peter will just be like, God, I wish I could just tell my landlord that I'm Spider-Man, but I can't do that. Then we add things off of that. Spider-Man doesn't just prioritize people over his identity. He only does it when he sees no other way. We learn this in moments when he tries to save his friends' lives without revealing his identity. We know that he's willing to tie himself to a secret identity for monetary gains. He'll sell pictures of Spider-Man under the name Peter Parker. And we can keep building these character traits into a list that allows us to better understand the characters. It helps us understand when a character is acting strange. In the infamous Superior Spider-Man, we see a Peter Parker who acts weird to us. We feel like his priorities are off. And then it's revealed to us that it's because he isn't Peter Parker. His mind was swapped with the villain. This reveal works because it builds itself up as something that the reader notices, and it makes the reader uncomfortable until it's revealed that the reader was correct the entire time. How the entire Superior Spider-Man story is very explicitly about reinforcing why Spider-Man works, and showing us aspects of the character that we may not have noticed before, guaranteeing us that the priority list that we had before is correct, through watching Otto Octavius live out Peter Parker's life and realizing these things himself. We understand that Spider-Man holds back his punches a lot because it surprises Otto Octavius when he accidentally breaks Scorpion's jaw, and this just tells us that we were correct to assume that Spider-Man is holding back his punches. The last job of a secret identity is to give us more stakes to the hero's actions. The hero has to save people without revealing their identity. And this creates an interesting dynamic for stories by having the hero focusing on something important, but also having to balance that with not revealing his identity. Or you can make stories that explore worlds where the characters do reveal their identity and how it impacts their everyday lives. Like Tony Stark revealing he's Iron Man, and basically inviting villains to attack him and his loved ones. It's a big deal, and the movies play off of it well. Iron Man 3 does a fantastic job of telling a story where Tony has to deal with the consequences of people knowing who he is. The people he loves get hurt, and he almost dies barely escaping because of Jarvis. The rest of the movie is him trying to act as a spy to save people, while also being immediately recognizable as Iron Man because he's Tony Stark, and nobody can pull off looking like Tony Stark, while also having to solve problems and fight villains without his suit and just his pure genius. It's a great story that twists the dynamic that most superheroes work off of. I think the only reason why Iron Man 3 works is because it builds off of a secret identity. It has extra layers of character where we see him dealing with his identity being revealed, and we can see the danger he's put in because of it. And that would be cool if it was just Iron Man, but it's not. It's every single Marvel hero. All of them. Captain America is a public government agent. Even fucking Black Widow's secret identity is known to the public. She's a government spy. She's assassinated world leaders. But she's also a world famous superhero who everybody knows. Marvel just doesn't know how to write compelling and unique stories that give characters this extra layer of development through their secret identity. The worst part is that there's never any stakes to people knowing their identity. We never see Hawkeye's family under attack because a villain knows who he is. There's no stakes. They just ignore all of it because it doesn't fit into this Marvel movie formula. Until Spider-Man. But even then it seemed like everybody was just figuring out Peter Parker, and he didn't care until we saw the consequences of it being revealed in No Way Home. No Way Home is the best MCU Spider-Man movie because it actually plays with the secret identity. Far From Home has a lot of cute moments designed around Peter having to find a way to save people, although from his own mistakes, without revealing himself. Even though there's no real reason for him to hide his identity from his classmates in this movie, we end up seeing a reason for him to reveal his identity in the next movie. Even though they just use it as a way to serve as Peter starting the real conflict of the film, further showcasing that Marvel is so incapable of using secret identities that even when they have an amazing build-up to a movie about Peter Parker's identity, they just write around to the problem because they just don't want to do it and they just want to do something else entirely. Now let's circle back to DC and James Gunn. One of the first examples he mentions of secret identities is Superman and Clark Kent. They're two different characters, and you have to find a way to deal with them that's as grounded as possible within this world of DC. While I like the idea that Gunn understands that Superman and Clark are kind of different characters, I would argue that they aren't two separate characters. They're two sides of the same character. This may be controversial, and I know that people have talked about this a lot and debunked this, but I want to pitch the idea that Superman doesn't need to be Clark Kent. He's almost never in real danger. He can basically teleport when he needs to. He doesn't need to worry about finances. However, Superman keeps his identity a secret because he wants to. Superman can go around and save people in his normal suit and tie, but he wears his suit as a symbol because it means something to people when they see that big red S. He also just wants to have a secret identity. He grew up as a human, and if he was being treated as an alien god all the time, he doesn't want that. He wants to live life as Clark Kent, who was raised on a farm in Smallville. He doesn't separate the two lives as a necessity, but as a desire. He just feels like being two different people. One of my favorite lines in Lois and Clark is when Clark learns that some parent hurt his kid, he storms out of the house and he and Lois have this interaction.
He threatened Mom with a gun.
It's fine, Clark. I handled it. This is not a job for Superman.
He's not going.
That's great. Superman could easily show up in his red and blue and be like, stop. But he says, no, he's gonna go talk to him and warn him of ever hurting his family again. Not because he doesn't want to. I'm sure he knows he'd be more effective as Superman. But he doesn't need to be talked out of putting on the suit. His natural instinct is that this is a problem for Clark Kent to go handle on his own, even if he still has the powers. He's not going to fake getting pushed around. He stands there strong because that's who he is. He doesn't want to put on a meek little mask right now. He wants to protect his family. I just hope that James Gunn understands that while secret identities are important to have, they aren't just a thing that superheroes need. They're an aspect of their personality that help flesh them out in a way that the viewers can understand their priorities on their own without having to have it spelled out. Every hero's relationship with their identity is unique, and while I trust James, I just want him to know. Please don't mess up superheroes. I don't want any more heroes who have secret identities just for the sake of having them. Please like and comment if you think I missed anything or your opinions of the whole secret identity matter, and please subscribe.